right. I think we're ready. So
Hallelujah.
we should be going live right now.
Sure.
We are live. So I've got Michael Basham with me. I've been excited to have some time with him. I love the straw hat and the shades, man. It's awesome. I wish I were in your position in Hawaii where you're suffering for the mission and anyway, Michael's got a great testimony and actually some things that have just happened recently that I'm excited to hear about. And I'm just going to let you run with it, Michael, and I'm going to watch for people. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them on Facebook and I'll get them to Michael. And you've got your own thing going on your end too, right?
Yes, I just turned on the Fringe Radio Network, and I am so pleased to be able to also share with the YouTube audience maybe all 10 of the people that might come listen to us live. And anybody listening to the recording, just feel free to share your mind with us. And I'm so pleased and so honored to be here. So grateful, brother.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to have you on here. Like I said, I thought we were friends until you unfriended me yesterday or the day before.
Well, Gil, there was that thing you said, and you looked at me wrong one time, and I got offended. So, no,
Like,
seriously, I have no idea how I blocked you. Like everything blocked you, everything.
Everything. Huh. It's like you don't like me or something.
Well, the thing that I have to say is that no, I do like you. I love you guys, your wife, your family, your friends, and your family. Awesome network, and I want to put a shout out to Eugene Hammonds, aka Sigint. Yeah. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Yeah, he's the one that brought us together.
Yeah, he's the one that reconciled us.
Yes.
Yep. I've been working like 4 shifts here in Waikiki, working different jobs, and I'll share some recent testimonies and just want to, I don't know, just let you maybe start out, like share how we meet. How the heck did we meet? How the heck did that happen? That's another.
Hammonds. He's the one that I guess told you something about us and said that we were strange enough or out there enough to be on Fringe Radio. So you contacted us. And my wife and I gave a little bit of our story and testimonies. So that was our initial contact.
That's right. So basically, and the way I met Eugene was through YouTube. I just went on a whole YouTube spree the last few years. I've been in Taiwan. I've been doing mission work around the world. I've been through a lot of weird situations. I'm going to tell your audience some things that will cause them some confusion, perhaps. Sorry?
I said to have nightmares. I know you've been through some stuff, man. I mean, some serious stuff.
Yeah. Well, we are going to talk about some very serious things. Yeah. And it's so serious that I think we felt the power of the joy of the Lord and that being a real force. Like actually the thing that motivates Christians as they're being drug off to be burned alive. I don't think, I would even be alive. And then, of course, I wasn't even that close to God enough to face that. I think the Lord had to put a woman in my life that was strong enough to uphold me. And that's my dear wife, Jennifer Christine, on Facebook. Jennifer absolutely has saved me. And the Lord used her to save me. But, I mean, that I can just testify. You find the right soulmate, you can go through anything. And so we are in Hawaii right now. We're able to continue the show. I took almost a year off because of the events that happened in 2017. And it's only been thanks to her that I was able to reach out to and talk with you, sir, and get in touch with some of the other ministries around the world. What we do is not so much bring people to us as a ministry. I am always working. I kind of believe in just getting out there working, and you meet people and God does stuff in your job. Yeah. My so-called ministry is like every spare moment, just doing social media stuff, podcasts, and I love listening to sermons. Oh my gosh, it's just your friends are so cool. from Ian Clayton, Mike Parsons, these guys, unbelievable. And I apologize that Chris, I wasn't able to confirm the time, but he wants to do a show.
Yeah,
as well.
He'll be a blast. You'll like him.
Yeah, how did you and Christopher meet, by the way? That's an amazing.
That's kind of a little bit longer story, but the short of it is somebody that goes to our church, Kingdom Cooking Center, was out at a seminar on the East Coast and saw Chris. And this gentleman at our place, he's also one of those seekers who's out there blazing a trail. They've written a book recently called The Pathway to Sonship, I believe it is. And anyway, very, very interesting. But he came back and said, "Oh, you got to have Chris come." So I gave him a call. We connected, and he came out and did a seminar. And most people that were at that seminar said it was the best conference they'd ever been to. He's just a beautiful person. He's brilliant. He's an outside of the box thinker. And if we're lucky, he might pop on here in a little bit. But he wasn't sure if he'd be able to tonight or not. But one of these days we will have him on here, and I'm sure you're going to have him on your show too.
Yeah, as soon as we can. I have to schedule it. Everything's been kind of up in the air. I love his whole dichotomy, his cosmology of just the universe, the stars, the signs in the sky.
Yeah.
I think that is so important that we start to engage with that, because a lot of these, and I kind of play around, and I'm a little bit of a clown, and I ticked off John Crowder a few months ago, and I apologize to John Crowder for making you so mad. I love you, brother. John Crowder, he's coming to Hawaii. He is in Hawaii. He's doing a show or a get together tonight that my wife is going to go to. I have to work. Peter Goodgame and hopefully Andrew Boham will be there too. But it's basically a glory festival constantly. And the reason I made it mad was I posted some videos kind of poking at him for his video of making fun of Ian Clayton and people who love arising and ascending into the spirit. And the funny thing about John Crowder is he wrote a book called The New Mystic, so he thinks he kind of owns that word. And I just like to poke people that they think they got the corner on the market on something like that. I don't think anybody does. I think that call it what you will, what you're doing, going into the spirit, what Ian Clayton's been showing people, just hundreds of other ministers, which is why I reached out to you and your lovely wife, was just to try to bring let's bring more names into the equation here.
Yeah.
And that it's a valid and legit thing. I am one of the first people that I know, actually I am the first person I know to experience the reality of the court system and the fact that you can access it and stuff does happen. It's really weird.
It is. Well, we've done we encourage people to learn how to go to the courts themselves. I mean, that's number one. But to get people there, we will usually do 2-3 court cases with them. And there's just been some phenomenal stuff. There was a lady that called us from Southern California, and she had been fighting for 5 years trying to get her inheritance.
Wow.
And just one thing after the other, it would get tied up. And so she called us. We did a court case that night in the heavens, and the very next day she got her checks and got everything settled. So this is really powerful. And there's been time after time after time. We sometimes are doing 6 or 7 court cases a week with different people, and it works. To me, if the people will engage with it, it's pretty much a once and done thing. It cleans the slate. It doesn't mean people won't Open the door and allow something in again, but it cleans the slate, and it's really powerful. So.
Yeah, and for people, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe Radio Network too. Thank you, Johnny Iron, The Iron Show, FringeRadioNetwork.com, and praise God, we're really trying to mix things up here a little bit. Like I go to different ministries, different channels, different movements, whatever, revivals. I even go back and I find the old ones. I almost became Catholic once before I knew any better when I was in Japan. And I was at a Jesuit university for a year in Tokyo, and boy, gosh darn it, golly, those Jesuit priests, they know how to preach the gospel. Like they can share their gospel in Japanese, and there's some real legit Christians in the Jesuit order. I don't care what people say. I was there. I was 20 years old, and I had my Bible ammunition, and I had my, my gospel loaded, and I had my Oswald Chambers and read my C.S. Lewis. And then there I was in the school, and I'm like, man, these guys actually know what they're doing. And I started learning about the saints. I started having experiences with the saints. I kind of freaked out ex-witch Laura Maxwell, who's a dear, sweet sister and a friend. Also the reason that the Fringe Radio Network YouTube just got taken off YouTube, because she posted all of these interviews with ex-Satanists before Halloween, and somebody got mad, and somehow we got our whole channel deleted. That was like amazing. But anyway, I told this story when I was interviewing her recently, that I contacted and had experiences that I cannot explain with Francis Xavier. And my story kind of begins in Tokyo, part of it, where I was learning Japanese. I was interested in Japanese culture since I was about 15, 16, started learning Japanese. It was sort of an escape from the horrors of the public school system, high school system in America. I was in Naples, Florida. My father is a concertmaster still of the Naples Philharmonic. And so we kind of settled in Naples, Florida, which is a retirement town. And I kind of went crazy there because we used to move every year. Like, since my grandfather, Don Basham, passed away when I was 5 years old, who worked with Derek Prince, and that was a huge movement. When he passed away, my family went into rogue mode and we're just moving all across the states. And my dad doing classical music, we would go to every single state except for Alaska and Hawaii. Now I've been to every state except for Alaska. And we suddenly stopped moving in Naples, Florida. My brother got really sick with epilepsy, and still has epilepsy. God bless my mom's heart. She's got a wonderful testimony. I've also interviewed her, and that's like a 3-hour thing. You can listen to my wonderful mother, who is the reason that I have my faith today. But I was in Naples. I was learning Japanese. I was like, I gotta go to Japan. I feel God's call. I would like open the Bible at night by the window, and just be like, what, God? And then he would say, I will take you to a faraway country, and you will leave your father's house, and I will, show you what to do. So it was that call of like, be my disciple thing. Yeah. And I didn't understand it, but I just had to go to Japan. I knew it was, God did all these miracles that were like, I am going to provide for you. I'm going to send you, you have this thing. So I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do, God? Like, should I learn Japanese? And one day I was driving my car and I was like, God, help me learn Japanese because it's hard. And, do you want me to learn Japanese? And I got to a library where I was going to study, and I had my little dictionary, and the library was closed. But then I met this Japanese lady in front of it that was standing there looking through the window. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? Because there's no Japanese in Southwest Florida. You're not going to meet a single Japanese there. They do not exist. But I met this lady, and she was like, oh, you study Japanese? I am Japanese. I become your teacher. And I'm like, okay. And she was this retired lady that lived in Naples, Florida, in Fort Myers or something. She's like, you come my home today. I teach you. I am Japanese teacher. You learn Japanese, you a student? I teach you. So I started studying. I had free tutoring lessons with this lady. I got in my car. I looked on the floor. My sister, who always writes down Bible verses, and, we were all into the Bible, and she would leave cards, little 3x5 cards. And one of them that she had left that I hadn't seen, I picked up while I was waiting for her. I mean, I was crazy. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go to this lady's house and learn. I don't know. Like, okay. And I was in shock because I just literally prayed, like, God, do you want me to learn Japanese or not?
Yeah.
God. And I had pulled into the library, and there was this Japanese lady, 1 in a million chance, who was like, come to my home. I teach you Japanese. You become my student. It was like something out of Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And I pick up this card, and I literally look at it, and you know what the Bible verse on it is? When you call out for help, he will answer you. Before you finish praying the prayer, he will give you the answer. That promise. I mean, it literally happened to me. So I was like, okay, I got my answer, God. I guess you want me to learn Japanese. Like, great. So I had about maybe, I would say, 30 or 40 classes with this lady. She drilled Japanese into me. And then she would make me dinner, and she would show me different things about Japan. And she was just this sweet, humble, broken woman, a widow that was in retirement. I was this kind of like crazy, swashbuckling 17-year-old. And I ended up going to Japan a few months later with the Rotary Club, and just everything opened up for me. And I got to go to this Jesuit school for a year. And when I was at this school, I met a girl who was in a cult, but she knew the Bible better than I did. And I never met anybody that knew the Bible better than I did. I'm not being, facetious. I knew the Bible. Like, I went to bed and I woke up and I spent my day with one of these Bibles in my pocket, and I would read it all the time at my part-time job, at school, whatever. Yeah, I remember walking in University of Miami, my liberal school. My dad was also associate professor of violin at the University of Miami. And I walked across the campus with a big old fat Bible one time, just by accident, because I had to drop it off somewhere. And I remember everybody staring at you like, "You're carrying a Bible?" Ooh, like even like Christians were offended that you walk around with a big black fat Bible by your side. Like, what are you?
Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Even Christians were embarrassed.
Yeah.
Wow. It was weird. So anyway, I was in Japan, and I started to, I had my eyes opened. I was into Rick Joyner. We interviewed Rick Joyner recently. Praise God, he's on the Fringe Radio Network now. We're putting his Rick rants on there. But anyway, he really opened my eyes to the idea that you could travel in the spirit, that you could get visions, that you can get prophecies. And I was rereading The Final Quest during that time. And then I met this girl who was in a cult, who was leaving it in the school, Sophia University in Tokyo. And she had all this information about prophecy, keys to the kingdom. She had memorized scripture like I had never seen anyone ever. She just knew the scripture so well. And she was highly sexual. I mean, very blatantly, overtly, like, and it just was like, okay, how does this work? And so she started to just share with me, like, look, this is where I was in the family, the children of God. And the way that was introduced to me was also a miracle. I was dating her for a period of time, and I literally at one point pointed at her and said, "You know what? No matter what, you're still a part of the family." And she's like, "No, I don't want to tell you. I can't tell him. God, why are you making me tell him this?" And I'm like, "Tell me what?" And because I was in love and everything, I was 10, 20 years old. And she's like, "Okay, I have to tell you my past." And so she told me all about her secret dark history in this cult that she never told anybody. And she's like, "The reason I have to tell you this is because you told me that I'm still a part of the family." And at that time, she was leaving the group, and she felt like all the group had ostracized her since she was going to become a worldly person by going to university and pursuing her career with Toshiba. And I think last I heard of her, she worked for like Forbes or some huge, who's the mayor of New York again? She worked for him.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name at the moment.
Anyway, she worked for his company. She was a very successful, she became very successful. Anyway, she told me about the family. She was like, "Look, I was in the family, and you told me," and it was like I had no clue about her. All I knew was that she knew the Bible better than anybody. And she taught me how you could talk to angels, how you could directly get prophecy from God, kind of like Rick Joyner did, that it was a normal thing. And I was like, you know what? I got to find out everything about this girl. I mean, even though we didn't stay together, I was like, I need to know how she learned all that stuff, how she knew the book of Revelation backwards and forwards, and she understood the entire Bible. And the children of God, they had a lot of sexual immorality going on. And I will not lie, I saw weird things, but it was not to the extent that the media portrayed them to be. Mm-hmm. However, I will say this, and my wife and I watched a Netflix documentary about the children of God a few days ago. There were pedophiles in there that people were made to think were like an anomaly. There was a pervading spirit of pedophilia similar to the Catholic Church, which was protected by other people, weaker Christians. And then that kind of bled into the whole incident that happened last year in Taiwan. So this is the stuff. I've just been like blabbing it out because God literally does so much all the time that I don't have a chance to. I don't know where to even write. I don't even have time to write it down yet. Even have time. I'm writing a book, but it's like every time I stop writing it, too many more things happen, and I have to kind of, catch my bearings. So I get a lot of comfort out of talking to Christians like yourself and getting involved with other ministries and promoting them, because that's what Don Basham, and Derek Prince did.
Yeah.
So did you ever listen to any Derek Prince stuff, or were you ever?
I mean, obviously I know the name, but I've not looked into his teachings or anything else. But I definitely hear his name often. So one of these times I will have to go back to. Is he on YouTube? I'm assuming a little bit.
My uncle runs Derek Prince Ministries, Uncle Leggett. It's probably one of the biggest foundational teaching ministries out there. Like, you will go everywhere in the world you go, there's churches, you'll find his stuff translated. My grandfather was shepherded by him. So did you ever meet anybody that was a part of the shepherding movement that was all screwed up from that cult thing?
Yeah, here and there. I mean, we spent years in the Adventist church. I mean, that's where I first started pastoring. So there was a little bit of a remnant of that even hit the Adventist church at one point. But, it never infiltrated it in a major way. It was just some offshoots here and there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically like, that's my foundation coming from that. My mom met my father, who was a son of Don Basham, that was like, they were treated a little bit too godlike, not just like we're the children of God, like we're, God's children, or we're anointed sons, but like they were the leadership. And it was all about leadership and shepherding, and a lot of people got hurt by that.
Yeah. Same thing in the apostolic movement. People have abused that and misused it, and so it has a bad name as well. But even though it's biblical, so
yeah, I think that it's a similar thing, except you might not have the level of control to say, like, you know what? And I've literally had people do this to me. Michael, you need to not marry that person. I think you should marry this person because God told me so. Like, that's what they did.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was culty.
Pretty damaging. Yeah. So I don't know how personal you're willing to get, because totally up to you. But I keep hearing about your daughter, but I've not heard anything. I just know you have a daughter, and there's something that happened with that group.
That's still ongoing. It's a very severe case of cults gone crazy, and I'm at this very moment getting messages from Taiwan, from people who were in Taiwan or who just were there, that are aware of the case that happened there, and to just kind of speed forward a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of miraculous, cool things that I hope will inspire people's faith that I can share. But currently, at this very moment, we are in a situation where the sins of the fathers, as you might say, as like the acts of absolute evil and pedophiles and, really outright Satanism that creeps into movements just as the family died, which it started to die as soon as I joined it. But people, they start to unravel, and I went to Taiwan. It's a long story, like the whole saga and experiences with that group took me to China, to India, to Nepal, to Taiwan, through Japan again, and then all over America. I was like, we were living by faith, we were passing out tracts, we were studying the Bible, and then the group died when I was in Taiwan. It chose that moment when I tried to rejoin it to die. And I was kind of like left like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because like I left home and God took me this far, and I'm a little bit burnt out from stuff. Like I've been through a lot. but I'm not about to go back. So I ended up staying in Taiwan. I started teaching English. I had a chance to meet the fringe Christian movement, which is another long story. And I met my ex-wife at that time. And I was in school. I was learning Chinese. And the amount of miracles around meeting her were just a plethora. Like, it was just like, okay, God's all over this. But it turned out this was a very abusive relationship. Like, this was a person that did not like the fact that we were together and hated the fact that she was a mother and just fought me like all the time. But I was like, no, we can't give up on marriage. We're going to make it happen. Well, we made it for about 4 years. And I think I severely, like, health-wise deteriorated. But because of positive people around us, it was we were able to make it through this marriage. And we had a daughter, and her mother helped us to take care of her daughter while we were both in university and working. And I mean, this is Taiwan. Like, everybody does this. You work, you barely have time for family. So it was a pretty typical situation. And it worked for a while. Like, we were able to, even after we were divorced and separated, we were still able to have some semblance of peace with their family and the people that were in that group. All of them had been born or had joined the Children of God at some point. Stephen Norbert Lee Meyer was my father-in-law. He married a much younger Norwegian lady, 20 years his junior, and they had a child roughly the same time that my wife and I had a child. And originally, my wife tried to get an abortion as well. That was a very shocking thing for me, because it was like, I thought we don't believe in that. I thought, that people from the Christian faith don't get abortions. But she actually scheduled an abortion for my daughter, and with the help of some friends that really believed in abortion. And I went on a 4-day fast and was like, God, if you can't save this little girl, why should I believe in you anymore? Why should I believe all this amazing stuff about angels and whatever, spiritual weapons and the end time and living by faith, if you can't even take care of my little baby that's going to be born? Well, he kept telling me over and over again, watch me, watch what I'll do, and just watch me. And at the end of my rope, at the last minute, I got a message in Chinese saying, watch out. There's a huge giant, and I couldn't read the character, coming at Taiwan now. I'm like, what? This was like when the abortion was scheduled. And then at the last, I'm telling you, it was the moment of decision. I get a message from my, at that time, soon-to-be wife. We were not married yet. She said, okay, I'll have a baby. Let's, but blah, blah, blah. Let's talk. I have all these stipulations. She was just kind of like this kind of a person. And it was like, oh my God. And I looked at the screen, and on the TV, there were these giant tsunamis in Japan, just destroying Japan that day.
Oh,
and
wow.
the moment that she decided, that was the tsunami. That was the earthquake in Japan, the Fukushima disaster.
Yeah,
that was 3/11, 2011. And the scheduled hour for the tsunami that was supposed to hit Taiwan was the same hour of the abortion that was scheduled for my daughter. So from the beginning, I was like watching a movie. I'm like, okay, what are we experiencing here? Like, obviously, this is someone that God is, I'm not saying that we caused it. I'm just saying that it was intertwined with these giant disasters it was like the worst ever disaster in Japan ever since nuclear bombs. Like, It was really bad. And so after that, obviously we got married, things were somewhat semblance of a peace. There were a lot of friends around, but things just deteriorated, especially when Norbert Meyer started to severely abuse his wife. At that time, after a while, we just couldn't make it work, and we divorced, but we were still on somewhat good terms, especially with the family there and with the rest of the cult people that were somewhat, just kind of playing along. Like, nobody was really doing a heavy missionary work in Taiwan. It was more like, okay, well, sometimes we pray for people and we go out passing out tracts, but it was like, there was this kind of like, we're just sort of existing here thing.
Yeah.
And I was reaching out a lot more to podcasters, to other ministries, because it was like, I'm not content with this tiny little closet church thing. And, you know, we're all working and everybody's drinking all the time. And we're not, like, nobody's seeking God anymore. Like, really, like, hardly. I mean, they were to a certain extent, but it was like, you know, there's got to be more. And that's where Ian Clayton's stuff really came in, and Justin Abraham. We just recently reached out to him, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chris Blackaby. And it was like, gosh, you know what? Hey, family people, look, a lot of your coolest doctrines, these mystic people, they're doing them now. Like, they're thriving on this stuff. You know, you guys, you don't have to be so sad that your group died. You know, my ex-wife had said, you know, it's like, it's as if America got destroyed. That's how I felt when our group died. That was her whole identity, you know. So once the cult died, a lot of these people kind of festered into like extreme weirdness and abuse. And it was like there was no more leadership. And one day, when the abuse got so bad with my ex-mother-in-law or whatever, I don't even know what to call her because she's just like a few years older than me. But my friend and I had this huge house with 6 bedrooms, and we were like, all right, if you need to just take a break, like, you're welcome to just stay over at our house. Like, we're all friends. You know, we've all been working together for like 5 years. You can stay over here, bring your daughters. We don't have to make it a big scene, whatever. Well, that wasn't okay with certain people. They were like, no, you can't do that. You can't leave this abusive guy because he's got a ministry. He's a healer, and he goes out on the street and he heals people and he witnesses to people. How dare you say he's abusive? It's obviously you're the one, you know. And the whole cult, all the people and children of God rallied behind this abuse and supported and even went along with and didn't do anything when my own daughter got kidnapped out of my house one afternoon when I was across the street I had a little English thing that I was working for a few hours, and I came back home to realize, like, grandma just came over and grabbed Kaya and all her babysitters, her family, her sisters, her aunts were all home with her. So it wasn't like she was unattended, but it was a very sneaky way. Crystal Kuo, who has a German restaurant in Taiwan right now, had already prepared all these legal documents against me and had just made up piles of weird lies that even the court in Taiwan was like, what are you trying to do to this guy? And ran into my house, grabbed Kaya. And of course she'd taken care of her a lot. So Kaya was fine. My daughter's name is Kaya. Okay, where are we going? Oh, we're going to Costco. And they're like, Michael, you know, your ex-mother-in-law just came and grabbed Kaya and ran off with her and said she's going to the grocery store. And I called her right away. I'm like, okay, I'm at the grocery store. Where'd you guys go? What's going on? And she literally was manifesting like this demonic voice that was like, oh, Michael, I just wanted to take my granddaughter for a walk. I mean, it was literally like a villain out of a Disney movie, like a witch. And I get to take her for a walk, don't I? I just wanted to take her to the grocery store. And I'm like, what are you doing? Do you realize what you've just done? I mean, I'm going to have to call the police. Like, what are you doing? Oh, it's fun. Oh, no. Oh, no. And if anybody's seen the movie Get Out, where these black people have their brains removed and replaced with people that are about to die, the grandma scene, that is exactly what she did. She was just like, oh, I'm so happy. And she's like, tears are coming out of her eyes because she's being possessed by this evil force. And she literally like transformed. And one by one, all throughout the country, and I didn't do anything. Like, I should have called the mafia, because that's how you get things done in Taiwan. I had mafia people asking me, like, Michael, do you want us to get your daughter back? Because we will do it. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very Christian. Like, let's just pray that, you know, good wins. And literally, like, every single person I knew, including my housemates, everybody except the Norwegians that we were trying to protect, they were like, okay, well, we can't help you, Michael. Sorry. You know, just good luck in court. I'm like, would you like to be a witness? Because you literally saw like all this abuse take place. I'm like, oh, well, they're our friends, and we don't feel like it's our place to get involved. And it was like, oh my gosh. Like, okay, so
Wow.
literally down to this morning, I am having messages from people that are still, they're like living in this brainwashed, like, well, we're all